Hour of Empower. I'm Don Cohen. So happy you took the time to be here today. I really value your time, thought, and effort. So we're hoping to give you some wonderful takeaways from here. We've got a word of the day that helps us focus and become as relevant as we can. It was chosen by my guest, Debbie Clement, and I want to introduce Dave Snell also to the panel today. And the word is metamorphic, or in some cases, metamorphosis. Uh, However, you like using that word or saying that word, uh, the key is really uh, how we can expand our vocabulary, and more importantly, how we can benefit from packaging and presenting our words to get the best benefit for the person who's going to be receiving them, as well as yourself for getting the benefit of the response to those words. With that said, I'll turn it over to Debbie. I just want to make sure everybody knows chat's open. Feel free. And Debbie, why don't you bring everybody a little up to date? And also, what's your initial thoughts on metamorphosis?
Well, since the pandemic, I have gotten absolutely carried away with monarch butterflies and helping with their conservation. And I've even gone to the extent of writing a picture book all about butterflies. So I'm the author and the illustrator, and there are two songs in the book, Don, and those are digitally downloadable. But even the end papers are each of my personal monarch butterflies. And so people ask, oh, I bet that's all photoshopped together. No, I'm old school. These are all rubber cemented together. So I take a photograph of my monarch or caterpillar and then cut it out and rubber cement it back over flowers. But I really wanted a scientific look for children at the process of metamorphosis. And I know that Dave is going to talk about how that applies to our own life and careers. But I wanted to show you that, no kidding, I have the props to help explain this to 4 and 5 year olds. So the little caterpillar's crawling along, and now this is not anatomically correct in size, but then I have a big caterpillar to emphasize the growth process. And what's really the most fascinating, and I think what we'll probably spend the most time on today, is the process of when that caterpillar gets itself all wrapped up, literally sheds its last skin, and then it's in a chrysalis. And it literally kind of does a little hula hoopy dance while it starts out in that chrysalis. And then the big reveal, and that's, I know, what we'll address today is there's a point in the chrysalis, it becomes so transparent. You can literally see the wings as they are maturing. And then one day, da, 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 the big reveal, out comes the butterfly. So, in my whole metamorphosis, learning all about this last February, my husband and I took the trip of a lifetime to Mexico to see the migration. And we rode horses up the mountain and we got ourselves there. And then at one point, I met a woman in Mexico who paints hats and of monarchs. And then that helps sustain an amazing project that she is very passionate about, helping individuals with special needs. And it's called Painting with Smiles. And they gather weekly. And just this morning, I opened Facebook. So I'm having Yoli, who paints the hats in Mexico, ship them to me in Wisconsin. And then I have found people who are her benefactors who purchase a hat, and just this morning, I got the message with a photograph that the hat that Yoli painted shipped to me. I shipped to a friend in Japan on one of our military bases so I could ship it APO. And she got it over the weekend and has a photo of her wearing a hat from Mexico that I shipped from Wisconsin all the way to Japan. And that to me is about growth. Yoli in Mexico had never considered the fact that she might have a conduit, which is me, to get her work elsewhere to support the kids. So that's my excitement for
Well,
today.
yeah, that sure was very educational. I learned so many new things. I really admire your enthusiasm for what you're doing and how you're trying to illustrate it and include more people. Which is one purpose of having a live stream is talking to people in real time based on what you're thinking at the time, not what you're thinking about saying in the future. And you tend to minimize your metamorphosis when you continue to review and edit,
Okay.
right? Because you're getting smaller, maybe a little cleaner, but I don't think people like small or clean relative to authentic, honest. Uh, and with that said, let me turn it over to Dave. I'm so blessed to have Dave and Debbie with us, and that's three D's. So can't beat that. Uh, and Dave, why don't you bring us up to date? You were here a little while ago, and your initial thoughts on Metamorphosis.
First thing I got to say is that's a hard one to beat there, Debbie. I don't know where I can match it or even come close,
Well, you're wearing orange, so I'm
it's very
giving
true.
you
It's the first full week of fall. I figured why not. But yeah, Don, thanks. I was on it was about 3 weeks ago, I guess now, or almost a month, and lots happened. Where I'm continuing my work to try to destigmatize mental health issues, mental fitness, improve mental fitness in our nation, veterans in particular, being one myself. But when I first heard the topic, as I was saying earlier, everybody goes through change, and from a military perspective, it was a big change for me, transferring out of the Navy 8 years ago and trying to understand where it is I fit in. What do I do? How do I change my mental perspective, from one job to another? We go through these changes through our lives, not just, single times from childhood to adulthood, but every time, like you said, we're we're necking down to something a little cleaner. Well, we can build upon as well as we change and learn. As we learn things, we shed a few things and we build a few things. So I'm a visual guy, I apologize, but we're on the same path. We're just load shedding and gaining different things to stay where we need to go. And I'm going forward, but we're also shifting left and right to try to understand who we are, what we bring to the table, how we approach problems. These all change through our lives, and we need to be ready to accept those changes for what they are. Life. Everybody goes through them. I love your visualization, Debbie, and the fact that we can visually see nature doing it. It's hard for us as individuals to watch ourselves change. Look at pictures of our childhood to today. We don't see the change until we look back, but it's happening, and our friends are seeing it. It's interesting to learn as we go through it, and then have to look to the past to finally visualize it. I don't know what else to say there.
I think that's a wonderful start for both, Debbie and Dave, and it ignites new thoughts that I now have that I didn't have before. Both of you shared, your insights and definition. Is change is constant, and whether you change or not, change is going to change you. So it doesn't ask you if you're ready or when's a convenient time. I think the other important word that I think that I know came out of what Dave was saying and what Debbie was demonstrating was nature, right? It has its own process, it has its own time. If you try to rush it, you'll damage it, right? And so why not apply that to oneself? You just understand everything has its natural rhythm. You can motivate it, but if you start to manipulate it, if you start to shortcut it, right, because of some extraordinary element that has nothing to do with it. I need money, so I have to do this. Well, you're just interrupting your evolution, right? I got to leave because of me, and I think that's really the key. Are you focused on the big picture, the long term, the understanding that that's what it's going to take? And if I try to do something, it won't be what it could have been. Now, it might be better, but it'll be different for sure. But a pattern starts developing. Why do I need the money that I have to do unnatural things with? So why not go to the source and say, well, how do I level off here and then allow myself to level up there? And for the caterpillar and the butterfly, to their benefit, they have no control over the process. It happens, and they go with it, and they come out of it much better for it. And I think that's where friends, coaches, groups like this can put things in perspective in saying, hey, you're not patient enough. This all happen if you allow it to happen and make room for it to happen. You can't be on both sides of the fence at the same time. And you got to leave something to find something or find yourself somewhere. So before I turn it right back to Debbie, I'm going to turn it right on to our wonderful audience who really makes this all worthwhile every day. Good Monday morning to all Jason Gerardo, and he's going to be here tomorrow again with Debbie. So, nice to see you. You get the door prize for being first to comment. There's a new gentleman. Haven't seen you before, but so happy to have you. Harvey's here. Harvey's got his own show following this show on Tuesdays called the Franchise Show. I was the first guest, so honored to be it. Kelly was last week. We're all supporting each other. And Kelly's show is the awesome journey that follows Harvey's show on Tuesday. So there's a triple header. So Harvey goes on to say, metamorphosis is a great word, the process of change. Perhaps the process of experience, growing and learning, unlike the caterpillar and the butterfly. We're all on a constant path of metamorphosis, and we should embrace it, enjoy it. Like I say, it's only going to happen so many times. Kelly's here, so everything is fine now. Good morning, y'all. Love this word. Perfect for a new week. So true. Wishing everybody a great start to their week. Harvey says, I think someone's taking over the prop king. Yeah, better watch out. Debbie's in town. Vincent W. Allen says, somewhere Kafka is smiling. And actually, Vincent's going to be a guest for the first time this week. Leslie, Flowers, two hats. Leslie's looking, counting, detailing, and coming back with all of her wonderful insights. Dave needs a hat. Uh-oh, two people. Elizabeth, hi. So great to see you. Read your post today, Elizabeth. Really enjoyed it. I think everybody should take this opportunity to see who's in the audience, who's on the stage. If you're not connected with them, but aligned with them, it's a good time to get to know people. And that's another great takeaway. Leslie Fowler says, Franz Kafka, Metamorphosis, great story. Leslie comes back, two pair of glasses. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, change the number on the board. Dennis is here. Dennis was a guest last week. I'm the fourth D, still trying to change. Agree, it is great to grow in the know, not in the know, and be positive. Thank you for your daily rhymes, Dennis. I love that, Dave. Metamorphosis being a change of perspective, a different outlook. If three people go on the same adventure and then tell the story, you'll have three different stories. So true, and it's just adjusting your vision sometimes or your expectation of future vision. Elizabeth Falloon says, love the colors. So true. Beverly's here, who's here on Tuesdays every week, but this week is joining Kelly on Thursday, and that opened up the slot for Debbie. Good morning, all. Perfect Monday morning word. We evolve and change. So true. And what's so great about it? Doing this every day for a year, I know how much change everybody has embrace because they got a chance to learn a little bit about something from somebody else. And, it's like pick and choose, pick and choose. And if you do it a daily basis, it's not grab and go, or get all you can. You're never going to see it again. And I think comfort and relaxation lend to metamorphosis, right? When the people around you are supporting you, when the environment is positive, right? And that's really by how you project. Your changes change the people around you for good or bad, right? Everything you do duplicates, ripples, and affects somebody. So if people can't do it for themselves, if they could realize how many more people are going to benefit from making that hard decision, that should be enough to maybe move some people forward. And it's all about moving people forward. Ashif from Toronto, happy new week, all. Let's evolve. Ashif sent me a great post, or at least shared a picture with me. So thankful, Ashif. Beverly, Leslie Flowers, masterpiece. We got all these people who just can't get enough of each other. Evolve and expand, Elizabeth says. Vincent comes back with, life is a process of constant change. Do not change is to die. For sure. And I love change. Some people dread it. Some people are just, if I can just do what I'm doing every day the same way, I'd be happy. I don't think they're happy. They're satisfied. And there's a difference. They might be comfortable in their satisfaction. But to me, like I say, change is for wherever you are, it's changing with it. And more importantly, getting in front of it, getting there before other people learn about it. And that's what this show is. I'm telling you, out of 970 million people on LinkedIn, I don't know of 40 shows. And even if you multiply that by 10, that's 400 for 970 million. We're talking directly instead of like Pony Express, dropping a post, picking up a comment, dropping back a response. It's so slow, and everybody does it. And that's the problem. People don't evolve there. They just get louder, more intrusive at times. Hats off and a heads up to David. Great. We got a fan for David in the audience. Vincent says what we are really talking about is the butterfly effect. For sure, and I think that's so cool with butterflies. And maybe when Debbie gets back the microphone, she'll go into a little bit more of what's involved with that. Kelly says the reason I use my flower, I think it could be called, on my profile and my posts is, right, we're always in bloom, changing and growing. And I think those are so important, Kelly, having symbols that portray you, having a hat, having props, because you bring more dimension, you bring more to the table, and it's visual, and you're better off promoting something besides yourself because it's not self-promotional then, right? And you promote yourself by promoting others and be seen as the promoter, not the one who needs it. Beverly comes back with awesome message on, when you change the way you act, others act differently too. And once you start embracing change that's working for you, you want to know when's the next change. If this was good and I didn't believe it when I first saw it, do I believe it now? And am I willing to take another step? Small change in our lives can have big impacts down the road or to others. And everything that's good is incremental things that compound. Little things done right over time make huge differences. I mean, if I eat a hamburger today and you eat a carrot, you're never going to see a difference. But 20 years from now, there's going to be a difference. And are you playing the long game? There's a saying, long-term pain for short-term gain, or short-term pain for long-term gain, right? And everything's an investment. Dennis is, so many comments. Pick and choose is so much better than not to pick and just to snooze, just don't lose. That was like a four bagger there. Morning, all. Glad Linda's here. Join you today. Has been a busy week and weekend for our Apple and Pork Festival in town. So out small town had a change of over 50,000 added people on Saturday and more on Sunday. And God gave us great weather. It changed. So happy for you, Linda. It's always great to have you. Let me just finish if there is something. But with that said, Debbie,
Yes,
what do
sir.
you
Well,
think?
I was going to pick up on Vincent's thought about small changes. You've already
Okay.
talked about how that can compound as we make those changes. And as we gather this group of thinkers and supporters and people who've had vastly different experiences together, how do we as people, it's been amazing to watch the natural process and to gather the eggs from milkweed. I mean, that's the first incremental step, is that monarch butterflies only eat milkweed. And so to be able to plant milkweed, to know that going in, I'm making a difference, I have milkweed in my yard. Oh, now I have 5 different types of native milkweed in my yard. I'm helping to sustain this creature that literally is endangered, could go absolutely demise in our lifetime, let alone the lifetime of our children or grandchildren. And so to become knowledgeable, I think that's one of the first steps in our own personal metamorphosis from being in the dark, right? You're a click away from learning what you need to learn in this era. I was looking up a couple quotes, and one I'll share is from Leanne Taylor, who says, "We are all butterflies, and Earth is our chrysalis. Our life is our chrysalis." As that creeping, crawling, munching, crunching caterpillar, suddenly goes into a chrysalis. I mean, if we could only have a narrator inside that little brain, and to say, you're going to be lonely. It's going to be dark, and it's going to be 2 weeks of you being by yourself. And guess what? Then you're going to fly. You've crept and you've crawled, and then there's going to be a quantum leap in what you're capable of. And I think a show like this, with Don's expertise and his track record of helping people grow from where they are, putting them in the spotlight, I think as I listened to your show last week about mentors, return on investment, all of these things where we can lift each other up and help the metamorphosis happen. I know something that you don't. You know 3 things I don't. There sits our Dave, all in orange, waiting to tell us about what it was like in the enlisted services. My husband was in the Navy and served aboard the John F. Kennedy aircraft carrier. And when we go to see Top Gun, the movie, he's the kid in the back with the thumbs up right before the plane takes off. He was the mechanic to give the last check of the airplane and to signal to that pilot, all systems go. And I think today, and the platform that you have here, Don, and the platform that you've helped sustain others with, is an all systems go. Let's learn together, and then let's launch into the new phase. Let's fly.
Well, that's so great, and so beautiful in so many ways because it's true. And I think that's where metamorphosis really needs to have its foundation is in truth to yourself, truth to where you're going, what you're going to be, and be able to soar and fly. We talk about aircraft carriers, that's a launching pad,
Right.
right? That's an airstrip. It's not meant for a plane to stand there. It's meant for it to use it to get up in the air. And everybody can get to higher heights by embracing other people who are on that same journey, right? One person can only build so much on themselves, but to duplicate through others, to collaborate with others, to communicate on a daily basis. I mean, how many people in your life do you talk to every day for an hour and do it in a safe environment that encourages sharing that question you've been waiting to ask, but not having the right person or situation to do it. And that becomes a release. When you share something that you never thought people would support or would look at you differently, and you don't get that reaction, you're in the clear now, right? If you get the worst out and it didn't affect anybody, now you can focus on, I'm okay, and I was the issue, not the issue was the issue. and being able to separate that, because, I'm always about making it about it and not me, because then it's not personal. Then it is an event, a thing, an initiative. But when you put yourself first, you're also going to take the hit first, and
Yeah.
you may not stick around long enough to finish what you were there for or remember why you were there. So before I turn it over to Dave, let's just get back to the people. Then to pick and choose is so much better than not to pick and okay. I thought we caught that. Uh, okay, Kelly comes back with Apple and Pork Festival. Yes, please. I can only imagine, Linda, what that town turned into for 2 days. Remember to give your time to bloom, as Sheaf says, and remember to give yourself time to grow, let go. So, Dave, what is this saying to you, this conversation so far?
A couple of points. I'm taking notes as we go along. I mean, we always, your point about stop putting it about me and make it about somebody else because you're going to take the first hit, but you want to help others, is that mentorship that Debbie brought up from last week. As an officer, Debbie, as you were talking, it occurred to me a story of one of my sailors. When I was in Iraq, I was in my early 30s. I had a 20-something-year-old sailor with me, and watching him from his time there as a not scared little kid, but just not finding himself. He's still feeling out, working with these high op tempo SEALs and Delta operators and Rangers, and then just 4 years ago, he calls me up and says, "Hey, I'd like to see you at my wedding." Well, okay. Well, where did this little guy come from? Where now he's, he's moved up. He's changed. He's gone through a shift in his own life.
Okay.
And it was enlightening, and it was a good feeling to say, okay, well, 15, 20 years later, this kid, now in his 30s and early 40s now in his own right, he's calling me up and saying, okay, there's something, we had a connection. There's something there. We had a mutual growth, and we've seen each other change over the years, and we've been able to talk about these things. Identify your own need to change. That's a very tough, one of y'all made that comment. That's a very tough process to go through. Okay, what is wrong internally? What is right internally that I can improve? What is not working for me that I need to change? Those are thoughts that we struggle with, internalizing the potential for change and the need to change. How can we do that? Well, through our own introspection, talking to our friends, having people who can talk about these things. Your platform here, Don, listening to others, saying, okay, maybe there's a chance for success if I see it in other people. I can make the same changes. Very important to learn from others, and it's very tough for humans to want to accept a negative, to accept a shortfall in our own lives, but we all have them, and we're all here to grow. To a Sheaf's comment, give yourself time to grow. You've got to let go of the ego. You've got to let go of the shortfalls and say, okay, I need to step up my game. What's going to be the next level I can get to? Because if we stagnate, we just accept, I don't want to say mediocrity, but just accept the norm, accept the standard of where we are. We're never going to be improving ourselves and those around us. And I'm trying to bring that back again to around us, because it is about a shared relationship, mentorship or friendship, whichever it is. And friends can be mentors and vice versa. I just try to look at change as a positive when we've been told that, hey, you're doing just fine is okay sometimes in our lives. And that's not something healthy, in my opinion. It's not something I see as really the nature of the human spirit to improve upon what we were the day before.
Yeah, I think you really put it all together in a great manner for people to understand there's certain degrees of everything. Everything is relative and conditional to situations. So there is no one change for one person that fits all. And not everybody is ready for change or even wants change or knows they should change. But one good thing is by being around people who are sharing their changes or their intent to change, at least you're living vicariously through their experience. Like, let them jump in the water and tell me how it is, right? And eventually, if you're the only ones near the pool, not swimming, having a good time, and you've seen everybody else do something like that, it should either give you some more courage or there's something to group think and group action, right? People do things in groups they would never think to do on their own. But when everybody does it, it almost seems right to do it. And I think in this world of AI and all the constant overwhelming media, if you can break off with 30, 40 close friends to an island in the sun, away from the noise, away from the divisiveness and the loudness and the disrespect, you can get a lot more done. I mean, try to read a book when someone's banging a drum, and it's the same thing. So I think you got to, just like a butterfly or any other process that lends itself to growth has to have the proper environment around it. If the temperature gets too low, if the moisture gets too high, it starts affecting things. So, with that said, I know, just question, Debbie. So, what were you so enthusiastic and excited about before you met the butterfly?
Exactly. I wonder that too. When you take a quantum leap, you look back and you go, what was I doing before I was uh, literally in the last 3 years since the butterflies? We've purchased a new house up here in the resort area of northern Wisconsin. And I have an entire garden of pollinator native flowers that goes from our front door all the way to the driveway and from the street from one side to the other. And I think, what was I doing before I cared about these? And now, Dan, I know that I'm in another pivotal time of growth personally and professionally. Before the pandemic, I was speaking across the country at lots of early childhood conferences, and then with the pandemic, all of that closed down. Right, the teachers couldn't gather together in a conference center, and so we went, Zoom and had cyber conferences. But now, since the momentum of all those invitations stopped so abruptly, I have gotten involved with butterflies and I have not uh, restarted the wheel turning. So, as I think about my own growth, and here I have another quote for you: a season of loneliness and isolation is when the caterpillar gets its wings. That's from Mandy Hale. And I personally, I mean, I'm all excited about going back to Mexico and taking teachers in March and showing them what this incredible world, the biggest migration of anything into Mexico with the monarchs, and I'm excited about that. But I also realize that I'm struggling, agonizing. Those are maybe a little strong, but with how much energy do I want to put into the travel aspect of being in Kansas on this weekend and 2 weekends later, that takes a toll, especially at my mature age. And so I'm really reflective and maybe not lonely exactly, but figuring out the next chapter. And what a welcome I feel in this community. I think we are as good as the people that we surround ourselves with. I had a wonderful mentor who talked about the tools in our toolbox. And I think that's how we grow. That's how we change. That's what metamorphosis is all about, is to look at the tools in our toolbox when we are lonely or alone or evaluating, and use those tools. Step into a format like this, for example, and grow.
Yeah, I think you cover a lot of ground in a very short period of time, but it lends other people while we're talking, just like when yourself and Dave are talking, I'm listening, starting to understand, and then match with what I think, and then add to what I didn't think before, or optimize what I had. Now I got a better thought. I mean, the quotes, the sayings, the metaphors you use were coming from someone else, or from someone else who was thought provoking enough that you created something you thought was kind of unique to the situation or to yourself. And then it's alignment. You can be with people, but can you lock arms with them? Or is there always going to be a conflict or a undercurrent? And I think by getting deeper, you always get richer, right? What the surface is does not always portray what's underneath it. And sometimes the ugliest looking fruit is the tastiest. If you just judge the fruit by its cover instead of just a book. But turning it back before long, let's get to my last comment. That's why I always keep something on the board, because I know where I stop. We all have two lives. The second one starts when we realize we only have one. Confucius. Great saying. I don't know what a sheep does every day, but he sure finds some of these.
Really great ones.
Yeah.
Elizabeth says, a sheaf, when the journey with change starts, it feels wonderful and you want only more. And that's another thing. Not everybody's coming from a loss. A lot of people are coming from a big gain that says, hey, I want to do it again. I mean, I'm surprised. This is terrific. You don't know what you don't know. And I always say you can do tomorrow what you did yesterday by seeing what happens today with a change. Right? I don't think you burn many bridges, especially in thinking. If you thought that way, you can think it again. Why not think something else or try something else and see how validating it is? Confirm it, and why not? And, you want to be unsure. You want to always be curious. You don't always want to say, I got it all covered. I know everything. Now, if you do, you wouldn't be saying that. Because you don't. Elizabeth says, synergy, great. Beverly comes back with, well said, you learn from others and sometimes you don't realize you're mentoring. It goes right down to the old adage, to be with positive people, they will help you grow and change. So true. And I mean, in today's story, sometimes you help people just unwittingly or unknowingly, and it made all the difference in the world for that kind word or that smile, or someone says, hey, if you don't got $1, I'll take care of you, in the grocery line or something like that. Little things mean a lot, because how many little things are done for you every day? Take a notebook and ask yourself, how many people are going to compliment me today on something? And when that doesn't show up to be a big number, you know how that number is to everybody else just like you. Right? So why not be the complimenter? Why not be on the lookout to say, for genuinely, I just love that hat, or I think you just got a wonderful pickup truck there, and even ask a question. Can you share a little bit why, or whatever, right? Engage. Harvey says, I have found LinkedIn to be an amazing place to witness change and development. I've been part of so many people's journeys, and allows you to witness your own metamorphosis. And it's so true, Harvey, because it makes you know that you can give more, do better than you have, and it's even easier and more exciting and pleasurable. I mean, Harvey does a Sunday column every week just for unemployed people. He's promoting like 30, 40 names, and getting them exposure. It gets nothing in return except the satisfaction of helping people. But if you want to be helped, you got to be helpful. You got to be worthy of it. No one really cares what you need or want. You usually get what you deserve. So make yourself deserving, and people will grant you that. Needy is always a bad look. Maria says, hey, folks. Sheaf says, carry inside us the wonders we seek outside of us. Rumi. Great quote. Agree, tools are much better in our box than fools. Okay. Negative people also help you grow and change.
Ah,
For
Yes.
sure. People are not used to receiving a compliment without an ROI. And, I'll tell you the truth. I learned more on the way down than I learned on the way up. On the way up, you take things for granted. You think it's owed to you. How come it took so long? On the way down, you can't believe this is happening because it never happened before. So I believe it's Dave. Are you
Yeah.
next? I get caught up. Go ahead.
I think so, yeah. But I tell you what, something you were saying, Debbie, that really struck me was, you said something about the loneliness and COVID.
Ah.
And I will take the hit from what you said earlier, Don. Stop thinking about yourself because you take the first hit. But I will tell you that what if we seek out and look for the opportunities to change?
right.
We are very, very so focused on ourselves and where we are that we don't open up our aperture to say, what can I change? And then the reason I say I bring it back to me was I think about all the people that looked at COVID and the closing down of the system and the isolation that we all felt. But what about those of us that took the opportunity to say, ooh, I need to internalize something here and look at where I can improve myself professionally, personally, financially, with our romantic relationships, our familial relationships, whatever it is. Take the opportunity, be open to finding the opportunities to change. In my case, I'd had the 8 years, or at that point, 6 years after retirement, where I was just down. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was fat. I was mentally struggling. As Don and I have talked about in the past, I found a process that physically, emotionally, mentally helped me transform from this low of what am I going to do? Oh, woe is me, to, hey, I've got an opportunity to improve myself. I've got an opportunity to learn from my mistakes to help others. And that, Debbie, you were talking about, what COVID did for you. This is what it did for me. Where's the opportunity? And embrace the change.
Right.
And we learn a lot when we fall down, but what if we take the opportunity to say, I'm open to opportunity. I'm open to change. I'm open to new things, and look at what comes our way.
Right.
For months earlier this year, I said, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. But I was always saying it to myself. I never put it out to the universe. And Don, you asked at the beginning, what's changed in the last month since our last call? Well, I opened myself up to change. I put out to the universe I wanted to do something, that I want to share my message, and the opportunities, they flow. We have to be willing to change. We have to get out of our comfort zone. Like I mentioned the last time I spoke, I have never been comfortable in front of the camera. What have I done for the last month? I've gotten in front of the camera. Okay, I'm talking about my story. That's a tough thing to do. Again, open the aperture and be open to the idea that change can be positive. Even out of a negative, we can find a change that moves us in a positive direction. And I struggled with it for many, many years. I've seen Maria's comment here real quick. I'll jump on it, Don. It was, what actions did I take? I started running. The opportunities change your mind when you start moving your body. It's scientifically proven. I embraced my friendships, my relationships. I stopped the, not the lies, but the closedness with my therapist. Okay. She called me on it. She said, Dave, stop the BS. Tell me the truth. You're playing this little game in your little chrysalis because you don't want to open up to the world. Essentially is what she said. So there is opportunity if we're willing to open our aperture. That's the main point I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think it also.
I'm a little passionate, and I started going. I apologize.
I think you did great, and you demonstrate what a forum like this allows people's questions to answer your own question, even though you couldn't ask it first, right? People, that's why the audience is so valuable.
Yeah.
It is questioning, it is adding, it is complimenting, and maybe that's the piece someone was looking for, or the support somebody was looking for. Because once you've reached that level, now you can move to the next level, and the more wins you have, the easier the next level is, because now you're moving with confidence. Now you're moving with experience, just like losing weight. Doesn't matter until you see the weight come off, right? And so many people, like, I did without this, I was good today, and I still don't lose any weight. But 3, 4 days later, if 2 pounds disappear, it's like, it works. You got to prove to yourself that yourself still works when you put it to work. And I always believe I can do whatever I put my mind to, because I don't think I put my mind to something I couldn't do.
Right.
And embrace. But I also know I don't have what it takes at the beginning, but I know I'm going to meet people, I'm going to learn things. And because of the mission, I'll start focusing on those elements of building the toolbox. And the fun is the journey. It's not the destination, because the next day you're on your new destination. If you love the old one and you're having fun, why not extend it? Where people are always trying to shorten the time, why not press pause and say, I'm in a beautiful place in my mind, in my life, wherever I am. I don't want to move from here, right? Until I have to. I want to get it all in. Debbie, what's your thoughts?
Well, I appreciate your transparency, Dave. I think that that lends credence to the process that we all go through. Sometimes it's a situational circumstance beyond your control. While you were speaking, it made me think of, I'm a breast cancer survivor, and I'm 16 years out from my first diagnosis. I've been diagnosed twice over these 16 years. And you don't want to pull that card. You don't want to get that diagnosis. And yet, I have to say that way back at the absolute beginning weekend of my knowing that was my diagnosis, I found a chat line for breast cancer survivors, and it just opened up literally everything: support, information, been there, done that, got that t-shirt. You can do this. You're overwhelmed today, but we're here for you. I've had the opportunity, since I travel so frequently, to meet many of these women in real life. There's still Joni in Oregon I have not met, who's to this day, 16 years later, still a wonderful friend through my computer. But I think, sometimes life throws you a diagnosis, or a change in a relationship or family, or, a death of a loved one, something that you didn't expect. And that propels you into, are you going to sink, or are you going to swim? And people all around us have skills that we don't have, or just have the tread of having had that experience, gotten through the dark place, whatever that dark place may be. And again, going back to our caterpillar in the chrysalis, it literally kind of goes to gel goo before, in the process of somehow the miracle of asking the right questions, surrounding ourselves with the right people, being transparent to say, I need help. I'm in a dark place. Or go ahead, Dave, jump back in.
Sorry, you just hit. It occurred to me the chrysalis you pointed out at the beginning is transparent.
Yes.
It gets to a point where it has to be transparent to say, okay, look, the next step is coming.
I'll go
I'm
rebuild
sorry to
that.
interrupt you, Debbie, but that to me was just it made a connection to me, that if we're not willing to open to transparency of what, like my therapist said, be open with me, then we're never gonna make the true change that's needed.
Right.
It really, Debbie, you just really made that connection to me.
Well, and I think sometimes the visual, the prop,
Yeah.
if you will, intended for a kindergarten child to see this, they may never have seen a chrysalis in nature. Chances are real good they have not. And
Yeah.
so, but maybe they have seen a butterfly, but to literally see it emerge from the transparent chrysalis, or as we generalize to, going through difficulty and growing, there is that moment where we're approximating and we're getting closer, and we've shed that first pound. And so there's some traction with the action action and traction. I know Dennis is loving that. Um, there's some traction, and then we say, okay, so I ran to the end of my mailbox, today, let me run there and back. In my own breast cancer, we got a memo. Exercise, it's good for you. It's the number one predictor of not having a recurrence. And the idea of, what did you enjoy as a child? And I loved riding a bike. And so I got an adult bike, and literally after radiation and the fatigue, I mean, not just tired, but body fatigue. I literally rode, to the end of the block and back. And then I went and I thought, well, you know what? If I did that in the morning, I could do that again this afternoon. And so ultimately I rode that little piece twice a day. And then I thought, I can make it to the library. That's just literally around the block. And pretty soon I was riding 6.5 miles to Mama's Bakery to get a muffin. And one day I was there, and there were two elderly women in their bike gear, I mean, with the shoes and the helmets and the whole thing. And they were talking to each other in front of me. And I overheard them saying, well, let's just take it easy today. Let's just go back home after this. And so I interrupted. I said, do you mind telling me how many miles that is, when you take it easy? And these two elderly ladies looked at each other and said, we're just going to do 22 miles today. I thought, oh, okay. They're just going to blow it off and just do 22 miles. So then my goal was, I need to be able to ride my bike as far as those two little elderly ladies. I need to be able to ride 22 miles in a day. And, then I got an actual odometer so I could track my progress and see, how far I've ridden, and incremental change over time. Absolutely. Transparency.
Well, it works. And I think Dave, myself, Debbie are prime examples that wherever you are, you can continue to be better, do better, and enjoy yourself more, because it's the wins, and there are things in the past that will never heal. They'll always have a sting to them, and that's the way that is.
Or you have scars. I mean, literally scars.
That's right. But no one goes through life without some challenges, and it's just when and how and who that determines differences between people's experiences. But again, there's a saying, it's not how many times you fall down, it's how fast you bounce back up. Falling down is just the way it works, and most people fall down most are the people who are working on the edge most, are challenging things, are going beyond just what I can do, what has no one else done, right? And that's driven some of the greatest thinkers, greatest doers ever. How many times it's never been done, you can't do it, gives you motivation to say, well, things have changed and no one's done it like me.
I always like the comparison. We never tell a child learning to walk to stay down.
Mm-hmm.
No, get up. You're trying to change. You're trying to get better. Fall down, yes, but you got to get back up.
Well, I know raising kids and being around kids too, it's great to have somebody around you who says it's okay, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? You fell down, it's okay. You spilled your milk, okay, not a problem, right? It's when people encourage you. That's how you frame your ideas, is the people who reflect on it. If someone says to you, oh, I hate that dress you're wearing today, it's so awful. That dress will never be the same, and that person will never be the same for you, right? Because you'll start entering what they said and start wondering, what did they see? What didn't I see? And that's the key, is confidence. When you have confidence, no one can tell you anything that's going to change your belief. If you're that solid in it, you'll just, you'll hear it, but you'll say, they're just misinformed, or, and that goes for people who are misinformed too, works both ways. But, how do you stay more resilient? I think to what Debbie and Dave are saying, you got to keep strong. You got to exercise. You got to exercise your mind. You got to exercise your spirit. You got to exercise your body, and every day you wake up and say to yourself, where do I need some fortification here? Right? Where do I need some help? If you had a dirty windshield, you wouldn't think twice about getting it clean. But sometimes you got a perspective that's not very visible. You're living an opaque life with opaque people. And what happens is, instead of getting deeper, you get more distant, right? Masks do not lend itself to invitations, right? People like to see you, hear you, and see you in your natural state. And that's what this show does. Is you can never create a video that you produce like this, because you'd be too careful. You'd be too thoughtful. You'd be looking, where do I edit? Where do I improve? Instead of allowing it to be. Let's just cover some more comments, because I know we're coming up on top of the hour. I see Sheila's here. Negative, disrespectful people definitely taught me valuable lessons. In every case, things worked out better. Yeah, taking the medicine is never fun, but the benefit of the medicine could make the whole difference. Was I the only one to embrace the time of COVID? I don't think so. I think it was dramatic for so many. Life has no limitations except the ones you make. Les Brown, for sure. You're the scorekeeper. You're the judge. You let yourself out of jail early if you want. Be precise. What actions do you take? We just answered that. Kelly comes back. Love that, Dave. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. If growth were easy, we'd all be doing it. I know Kelly does so much for first responders and for the military, along with Christy Howard. So hats off to you. Sheaf says everything is hard before it's easy. Conditioning and consistency. Maria comes back with, for in the face of the great unknown, we find our purpose, our path is shown. Open the door to change and see the endless possibilities that can be. So true, Maria. Thank you for that. It's so encouraging. Maria, as you always say that. Elizabeth comes back with, can't do it alone. It's not fun alone either. You can always do it alone. Why? Books, minds, and umbrella, they're open for sure. Bikes do help us get pumped up. The power of visualization, so true. Dennis, great to be around kids, no kidding. Kelly comes back with lots of love. I do always say that, Maria. Life is a workout, Elizabeth says, and great power to be top of the hour. Thank you. Well, with that said, let's have final thoughts. Dave, you can go first. Your final thoughts on the show and the word and everything else that goes with it.
Well, I think first off and foremost, thank you, Debbie and Don, for a wonderful hour. This is always an amazing presentation that you put on, Don, and I thank you for bringing me back. The topic, like I said at the beginning of the hour, was something that really hit me. I really enjoyed the thought process. Change happens whether we want it to or not. We need to embrace it and be open that aperture to the idea of, what can I change? How can I change it? Developing a plan, whether it's intentional or not, it's going to happen. But why not make a plan to do something positive that you want to see? And that pretty much sums up, I think, is be open to change, be ready for it, have a plan if you want it, and go for it. Don't stagnate.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Dave, for your contribution today. Debbie.
Well, I'm going to conclude with a Maya Angelou quote. We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the process, the change that it has gone through to get to that beauty. And that, to me, summarizes the whole process of change. Tomorrow, we're going to be back, Don and I, and we have a third different wheel, not Dave. Thanks for being here, for your transparency. And we're going to talk about transformation, which is just a slight nuance in the lexicon between metamorphosis and transformation. But I heard I think the light bulb really goes off for me when Dave said, it's the plan. It's the plan that you create to make that change, to make that transformation, documenting, oh, okay, so today I didn't have cookies at dinner. And how does that affect the bottom line? Or today I did walk around the block, and keep track of it, journal your transformation. Because I heard Don say over the weekend, people plant seeds and they expect the flowers tomorrow. That's not how it works, right? So we have, I think, the journaling, the keeping track of your plan, putting in the hard work over time, even if you're the only one that at first sees that transformation, that change. So I'll look forward to being back tomorrow.
I'll be looking forward to having you back and having Dave back in the future. And if this works for you, it probably works for people like you. Share this program and other programs like it exist to others. Everybody's sharing things on LinkedIn about what they're into or what they did or what they're hoping for. But what people are really looking for is value, right? Is what can you do to help them? What is it that may be a benefit to them? And that's what I would post, because it's not popularity. It's really importance and relevance that you're looking for. Just a bunch of people go ahead, Debbie, please.
That made me remember this weekend we saw a movie. It was on Prime, so if you get Prime, it's yours to watch. Called A Million Miles Away, and it is absolutely the best movie that I have seen at all recently. True story of a young child as a migrant worker in the fields, and his goal of serving on NASA and flight. And so it literally, and there is a monarch butterfly. So of course, I was thrilled about that inclusion. But to watch powerful, uplifting shows that can bring it all together. Okay.
No, that's great, and I'm so glad you brought that up. And if anything, what I do know is we're all capable of more than we think we are, and we're more capable at doing things than we do things. Because it's interesting, and you bring COVID up. When you have to, you do. When you don't have to, most times you don't. Right? Fear of loss is always a greater motivator than greed. Right? People fight to keep what they have, but not always do a lot more to get more. And it's really about turning things into you being the reason you have to change, not a situation that makes you change. And if you're the proactive, taking the initiative, and to Dave's point, writing it down, something in writing all of a sudden has power. There's a metamorphosis, because you can't walk away from it. It'll be there when you come back. You're going to look at it, and that's going to reinforce it. If it's just an idea, pretty soon it gets fluffed over by some other thing, and you forget it even existed. But everything is a spark in your life, whether it's a person, a situation, and there is something true to when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And it's up to you to be open to that teacher for it to appear. It's like yelling at a furnace, say, give me fire, I'll give you wood. So anyways, we're over. I try to respect top of hour during the week at least. Thank you all so much, including the audience. I'd say some more comments, but we'd be too far deep. Thank you for all, and we'll see each other tomorrow with Debbie again and Jason. And reach out to Dave and Debbie if there's anything that you want to follow up on or get to know them better, because that makes a difference, right? We can do, but if everybody does, it's so much better. Thank you again. Take care.